everybody seems to have kindergarten stories. It was Columbus Day, and everybody was dressing up as either a pilgrim or an Indian person. And one of my classmates, he's like, I thought all the Indians were dead.
My cousin and I, we were the only two Native students in our kindergarten class.
Like, it goes back to, in elementary, watching Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving, those certain stereotypes. And that's where it starts.
It was Columbus Day, and I decided I was going to educate my teacher about what I knew about Columbus. And I was going to tell her, I'm Native. And she says, no, you're not, Jayden, you're Korean. And I said, no, I'm Native, I'm Korean, I'm Irish too. And I stomped out and I walked out of the classroom and I sat in the parking lot for the remainder of the day.
We would get comments about our long hair almost daily from other students, calling us girls, calling us gay, we were made fun of a lot and bullied for our long hair and, representing our culture.
Fast forward to my 3rd grade experience, I was sitting next to 2 Bilagana boys who thought it would be a good idea to draw pictures of airplanes shooting guns down at Indian people on horseback, and showed me those pictures, and they were like, this is what happened to you, and it was funny to them.
The younger the children are taught, the more that they grasp, the more that they hold. And so when you teach this untruth of a people, that's what you're going to grow up to know and understand.
Most of the racist comments that I've got have come from my teachers rather than my peers. Though I've had my fair share of being called Pocahontas or asking if I lived in a teepee by multiple peers, the more bewildering comments that I've gotten are from my teachers.
I almost got kicked out for not standing up for the flag. I always sat down and always put my head down. And it wasn't to disrespect, those who had fought for this country, right? But I did a prayer. I would pray because of all my ancestors, of all those past generations that had died for that flag.
And 4th grade, California Indian people, California Indian students and non-Indian students are forced to do a California mission project. You are supposed to go find a California mission, you do a history project on it, and you talk about why it was good for California, why it was good for Native people, why it was good for non-Native people. And there is absolutely no mention of the genocide, the slavery, the violence, and the hatred and the racism that took place, that was the purpose of those places. None of that is ever mentioned.
My mother and my grandfather had taught me that each stripe, yes, represent those 13 colonies, but those 13 colonies wiped out, most of those people in that region. And then there's the stars, right? In order to get those stars on that flag, they had to rape our women, murder our warriors, imprison us in reservations. So why would I acknowledge or stand up to that flag? That's how I looked at it.
It's really overwhelming because to us, we get it. We've been dealing with this since we were in kindergarten. We have had our elders talking to us, telling us the stories about what happened. We know where we come from, and it's here. So how are we supposed to, how do we get that out? How do you get people to care?
We had a historical figures project. I know a lot of our students have this, where you're supposed to, write a research paper on a historical figure, someone who you really admire, and then you come to school dressed up as that person, give an oral presentation. So I decided to choose Red Cloud, and I wrote my research report on Red Cloud. I went to school, dressed in my native regalia. At recess, before I had a chance to actually give my oral presentation, there was a group of 6th graders. I was in 4th grade. They circled up around me, and they started doing like fake war hoops and like dancing around me and plucking the feathers out of my hair. And I was devastated. All I could do was cry. My teacher didn't know what happened. She was like, okay, Dahkota, just suck it up. There's no need to cry. Come to class, give your presentation. So I did. I sucked it up. I gave my presentation, pulled through the day, and my mom picked me up at the end of the day. And as soon as I got in the car, I just like let loose, like bawling, like, you know, telling her what had happened. And before we could even leave the parking lot, she like pulled over and like we marched right into the principal's office. And the principal asked me, he was like, you know, what do you think we should do? I wanted a formal written apology, and I wanted them to have to write a research report on the mistreatment of Native people throughout history.
I went to a school dance show at my high school, and what happened was it was a Peter Pan themed dance show. So obviously, I already kind of knew walking in there's going to be some sort of Indian dance. I prepared myself mentally. I won't throw a fit. And so I walked in, and it was outrageous. They were coming, and they were raising people from the dead. They were shooting bow and arrows across the stage. Everybody was dancing around in headdresses, and I was like, oh no, this is not going to go under the radar. Everyone was so mad that I called out the dance show, and I had girls being super mean to me, saying that they felt targeted, that was really inappropriate what I did and was really immature. And I told them, you don't have the right to feel targeted. You don't have the right to feel like you're entitled to represent my culture that way on stage. That was not okay. And, you know, I think that one big thing that I get when I'm talking with people about how I feel when they say something inappropriately or do something inappropriately or wear something inappropriately, that they say I'm sensitive. Has anybody else gotten that? You're so sensitive for making that go to heart. It was just a headdress. It was just a Halloween costume. It was just a joke. Yeah? Yes. Yes? So they called me sensitive. Now, I am not a sensitive person. I do not respond well to being called sensitive. I made the teacher of the dance show teacher, apologize to me. I made the principal apologize to me, and I made them take cultural appropriation classes.
A lot of my work on fighting racism in the education system has been around mascots. I grew up in a really small town, and one of our biggest rivals was the Calaveras Redskins. And, you know, I played high school football, and, you know, it was tough being out there on the field. You know, you see people from, you know, that school wearing headdresses, you know, fake face paint, really doing it up. But then at the same time, you have people from your own school who may be yelling and chanting, you know, saying "kill the Redskins," "scalp them," things like that. It's almost like there's no way to escape it when you're in that kind of situation. When our students are exposed to mascots in a place where they're supposed to feel safe, when they're exposed to images that dehumanize their culture, that tell them, you know, you don't exist, all you are is an image on the side of our gymnasium, that gives students a lower self-worth. It you know, makes them feel out of place in a location in our academic settings where we're supposed to be doing our best. We're supposed to be getting our education and feel accepted, and yet that's not the case for our Native students. And so the mascot issue is more than just removing images. It's creating a better place for our students, and, you know, creating a place where they feel worthy, where they're on the same level as other non-Native students. And a couple of years ago, I had the honor to work with Assemblymember Luis Alejo, who represents Salinas County for California. And we worked on a bill together called AB 30, the California Racial Mascots Act. And Governor Jerry Brown signed that bill into law in October 2015, legally banning the use of the Redskins mascot in California for public schools. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that was a really big victory for us, but, you know, there's still a lot of work to be done.
I was in a history class at Sac State. It's just it's like basic GE history, American history. And it's the second day of class. It's a Tuesday, Thursday, and it's the second day of class. And the professor is talking, he's basically going over the outline and the syllabus. And I'm excited because the syllabus is talking, he's like, we're going to talk about slavery. We're going to talk about women's issues. He's outlining like all these, and he says we're going to touch on indigenous topics as well. So I'm sitting there thinking this is going to be a great class. I'm really excited. This guy is inclusive. And on the second day of class, he says that he's like talking about indigenous people, and he goes, the genocide, I'm not going to use that word because genocide isn't what happened to Native people. He said, genocide is not what happened to Native American people because most of us would be wiped out by European diseases. So what I did was I went home, I jumped on Twitter. I have a lot of Native people follow me on Twitter, and we interact and we talk about, and I asked them, hey, I'm going to put together a packet for this guy. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to find some evidence. I'm going to bring it to class, and I'm going to ask him about the comment that he made. I'm going to ask him to back it up. I'm going to ask him what made him think it was okay to make a statement like that at a university level in a college classroom to 30, 40 students. And so I had this packet. I highlighted it. I annotated it. I left a couple documentary recommendations on the back, and I took my packet to class. And I brought it up kind of towards the end of class. I asked him, hey, you made this comment the other day that genocide isn't what happened to Native American people. Why do you say that? And he kind of did a little chuckle to himself. And he's like, we're not going to talk about this. And I said, why not? And from then on, the conversation got a little more heated. Nothing happened to the professor that said genocide isn't what happened to Native people. He wasn't held accountable for his actions by the university. He wasn't reprimanded, and he was protected by the teachers' union. And when me and my parents went in to talk to the president of the university, he said, oh, my parents have some old Indian ground in our home back in Texas, an old Indian burial ground. Great. Give it back. And so I only saw he's not my professor. I only saw that professor one time after that, and all he did was give me a dirty look and laugh at me. He was just and that was really disappointing.
Online you can see what the 8 stages of genocide are, and the very last stage is denial. The denial that genocide ever happened. That's what California is living. That's what the United States is living. It's important to recognize and tell other people and make sure that they recognize that genocide is still happening. We're in that last stage of denial, and that needs to come to an end.
So I sat on President Obama's Advisory Council on Indian Education, and our job was to write a report every year that we would issue to the President, to Congress, and to the Secretary of Education on what needs to happen within Indian country as far as our education system goes. A lot of the racism that happens in our school almost mimics that at a higher level. Every report that we submitted, not one member of Congress ever responded to us. And that's a really big issue, being that our representatives, who are supposed to be running this country, who are supposed to be taking care of us as citizens of this nation, are ignoring Native people, not responding to the reports that we're giving them.
I had a professor saying that oral history and oral tradition is not a legitimate source of knowledge. And I said, excuse me, sir, maybe from your viewpoint I can understand what you're trying to say, but I'm an indigenous person, and I know for a fact that that's not true. Both of my sides, California and Arizona, we rely on our oral histories as a way of keeping our traditions alive. And those have survived genocide. Those things are very strong. You cannot say, maybe in your experience, it's not legitimate, but you can't speak for everybody. And we got in an argument that day too. And so it was me here and the professor here, and I got to the point where he ran out of things that he could say, and he realized that he was wrong. And rather than owning up to the mistakes that he was making and saying, okay, you know what, maybe you're right, maybe I can see it from your point of view, he stared me down. And he was mad, and everybody was laughing awkwardly, and I stared at him back.
Racism over many, many generations has become more accepted socially. I think that a good way to approach it is call them out, first of all, and tell them, why do you think that's okay? Why are you contributing to the last stage of genocide, which is denial? Why are you contributing to stereotypes? Call them out. Look, research your information. Get some backup. Give them examples. Have materials ready. I have materials on my computer ready, in my car ready. I have pamphlets ready to hand out to any person that is going to say something negative or something offensive to me. So I think research, back it up, and be prepared to answer those comments such as those, because it happens daily. It happens all the time. So just be prepared, know your information, and call them out. Don't be scared.
Every movement, has started with, one person speaking up, and sometimes you have to be that person.
A lot of people are going to dismiss you, especially as youth, I believe, because they think that you don't have enough life experience or you don't know what you're talking about.
Being the only Indigenous student in a classroom a lot of time, it's very uncomfortable when you bring things up to your teachers. When you choose to challenge people who are uneducated, people who are ignorant accidentally and ignorant willfully.
Sometimes you feel like you don't have support and you feel like you're alone. And I think that's what makes it really hard for you to want to make a stand. So I really think and feel that having that support system is really needed. And as a community, we show that to one another.
If you're willing to take that lead, to speak up and say something, others will follow. There's always going to be a support system, native and non-native.
I feel like the best approach, if you ever have to deal with a situation that you feel uncomfortable with or you feel targeted with, or someone did something super inappropriately, is to not go unspoken. They can't walk away from the situation not knowing what they did wrong.
Non-native allies, if you say you're going to be there for us, actually be there for us. It's not a matter of standing with, but standing for. You are never alone. As soon as you say something, people are going to support you.
Number one, first things first, you got to be safe. And you can't be doing stuff like that when you're by yourself. Especially as an Indigenous person, and particularly as an Indigenous woman, you have to be safe.
One of the best tactics, I think, to use in fighting racism is educating. I think that is something that really, really works to our advantage, is, giving facts and letting people know what, the truth is, educating them.
I think that students should annotate a history textbook and realize that it's all wrong. There's so many statements that are wrong. The Indians wandered to the mission. The Indians had no place to go, so they went to the mission. I mean, I spend hours. I get history textbooks from my AP US history class, and I spend hours annotating it, photocopying it to my teacher, telling them, this is wrong. You got to give me some other stuff to read because I can't read this anymore.
Educating people, people who don't understand the history we do, it can be very traumatizing and it can be very tasking work because you have to repeat the same stories. You have to repeat the same evidence to people who aren't necessarily empathetic to your struggles. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to be really patient, gauge the person that you're engaging with to understand where they're coming from, but don't give up. Don't give up.
You have my support, and I will be there for you because these things are important. And we cannot let our peers and those that are younger than us to live the same thing that we're living today.